Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to CvCISO podcast number 82. I'm your host, Andy. Today we have the founder of FR Secure, Evan Francine, executive director of CurityStudio, Dave Tuckman, and normally we have Jordan Darlington, but he's transitioning to a new job, so he will be joining us again sometime next week, I believe. A couple quick items. The CvCISO program begins April the 6th. Great opportunity to level up your skills in risk assessment, information security, and leadership. No prerequisites, no attendance taken, and amazing guest speakers. It'll be a very good time. The CvCISO Level 3 courses are available. We have a communications course starting Monday. They've been getting really good reviews. March 30th, we have a new program opening up, a new certificate program called the Certified CurityStudio Risk Assessor certification, and definitely very excited about it. Dave's been working morning, evening, and night. Morning, day, and night. Morning, a lot.
All of the
That's
above.
what I'll just say. Exactly. Working a lot.
Yeah.
Anyhow, amazing stuff going on. That's all I got.
Awesome. Nice job. This is going to be weird without Jordan here. I feel like we could talk smack about him and stuff.
No, yeah, but in the end of the day, we're very supportive of his transition.
Are we?
I
Are
am.
Well, okay. I got some issues.
We can start there.
Yeah. Not with this transition, but just issues, Yeah, that's it. I don't know. Feel like I stumbled into something maybe a little bit. So anyway, it's transitioning to a new job. We're proud of him. We're excited for him. He's been trying to find this a new thing for a while. I think he was one of the he started his own company way back, man, it's got to be 15 years, 14 years ago is when I first met him. He was starting his own business and he had just gotten his master's degree from information security, or maybe he was doing his thesis, I think, and he needed to talk to an information security leader or something. And so he scheduled lunch with me, and we sat down at lunch and just had a great conversation. And then he started his own business. And then that business, I think, either got acquired or merged into that Top Dog company that he was working with. And then he was there for 8 years. And then now he's transitioning into a new position. I think, it's something to be excited about.
Yeah.
And we were best.
And we were chatting about it earlier where he's kind of crossing that bridge from being in an MSP to specializing in security. And so everything that you've shared with him and we've seen through his journey, through the academy and different things, just watching him continually. There's something really cool when you can take what we try and do through academy and see where it has tangible results for somebody in their work life and their personal life. And there's different people that have hit that mark. I know Dan Ovick was one. I was super happy when he had the opportunity to join the team at FR Secure, but Jordan's a notch on that tree now as well. And just happy for the guy.
Like a proud parent.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We've got some security news of the week, Mr. Dave.
We do. And we got a new feature where we're going to highlight a certain article or topic. And I think you picked a great one, Evan.
Oh, we're going to go with that one?
I thought so.
Oh, I don't pay attention. I mean, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Of course we are. Duh. I mean, you said it like five times.
I was sold. I was sold.
All right. Well, this one is, the link is to CSO online, but it's been all over the trade rags this week. The CISA, in the, just read the headline.
Yeah.
And then we'll dig into it a little bit. So CISA chief uploaded sensitive government files to public chat GPT. There's a lot of lessons in this. And
there's a good amount you can unpack from that headline alone.
Yeah. Well, and I've got my own personal opinions. I don't know the CISA chief. His name is Madhu Gadamulaka. Sorry. I don't know him personally. I do know his background, and take a look at his background and draw your own conclusions. He was the former CIO for the state of South Dakota. If you look at that, the CISA fits under the Department of Homeland Security. The Department of Homeland Security chief is Kristi Noem. Kristi Noem was the governor for the state of South Dakota. So I'm just going to assume that there was a good working relationship and, she took him or recommended him for this role. Now, I mean,
Yeah, no, that connects some dots that I was not aware of.
yeah.
I just, yeah.
Well, in the state of South Dakota, it's not a really populous state. It's not. It certainly has some targeting from foreign adversaries, but mostly in the military sense, not in the state sense.
Hmm.
Anyway, this is the guy, and he's been in this role at CISA. CISA's gone through a lot of tumult, whatever, over the
Turbulent.
last. They cut. There was a budget cut. Cut a bunch of staff. A bunch of staff left because kind of in protest.
Hmm.
But he's been the lead there since May 2025, and the allegation is that Madhu Gatumukala uploaded at least 4 documents to OpenAI's ChatGPT, and this happened between mid-July and early August of last year. So, for official use only, quote unquote, that classification, it's not top secret stuff. It's not even secret stuff. It's not classified in that sense. But
Hmm.
for official use only means it's internal. It stays internal. Distribution internally within CISA it's limited, but if somebody gets eyes on it within CISA that doesn't really have a need to know for that information, it's not a big deal. But it is a big deal to put that stuff on the outside. But it's not so much the data that he uploaded, it's the fact that he uploaded data to ChatGPT in this way, and it opens up a whole Pandora's box. Like, what else does this guy do? Because as the leader, you kind of have to set an example for this. So
Yeah.
I'm not digging it.
Well, it opens that Pandora's box of more. Now we have more questions than answers. We
Right.
know what the guy did, but we don't know the other scope or what may be happening underneath them. Because, like you said, this is a leadership role, and that you ideally lead by example.
Right.
And this is not the most optimal example to lead by.
Yeah. I mean, and you would think as the CISA head that one of the first things that, I guess, because I try to put myself in the same situation before I judge other people, but if you put me in that same situation, if I were the head of CISA, one of the very first things I would do is thoroughly understand the rules, the regulations, the policies, the governance, how things operate around here, so that I stay within that shit, because you know that there's going to be lots of eyes on you being the leader of this organization. So did he not know that this was not, permitted? It wasn't long after he joined CISA that he requested, and this was another news article way back when, he had requested this special permission to use ChatGPT, because by default, you think of a government work computer, it's not going to come with, it's going to come pretty buttoned down, right? So you have to request certain things. And so he requested special permission to use ChatGPT because it's blocked for most,
Sure.
employees. So it's like
Yeah.
you requested access. So you think even in that requesting access, okay, you should know the rules then for using it, because you're going outside of the norm already. So the eyes that were on you before are going to be even more on you. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's shitty. It's shitty all around, especially for a security person, because you could always use, like, if you really want to use ChatGPT, use it on your own damn computer.
Amen.
Mhm.
I mean, a lot of tech people, and especially people in tech leadership positions who have a little bit extra money, you have multiple computers. So here's my work computer, which I do work shit on, which I don't need ChatGPT. And even if I did need ChatGPT, I better use it according to the rules and regulations. All my other shit, like, because if I'm just curious, I want to do research, or I want ChatGPT to be my work assistant, use it on another fucking computer.
Yeah. Well, you just, even if we look at it, so this guy did what he did, and I get it. But if we try and look at it even through the lens of us being VCSOs or leaders or security leaders in some capacity, the idea is if you're going to use it, there should be a clear understanding of why you're using it, what is acceptable use, and what are the processes on that. And that's where this just leads to other questions we may never hear the answer to.
Right. And you'll hear a lot of, on the surface, like, why would we make such a big deal out of this? Because it wasn't highly classified information. It was it was contract information. It was for office use only, which in the government classification scheme is not really that sensitive. So the people that defend this kind of behavior would be like, well, come on, why you raking this guy over the coals? It's not that big a deal. And I agree, like this instance, when you just look at it on the surface like that, it's not that big a deal. But when you look at this in context, which the worst information security decisions you're ever going to make, probably the worst decisions in life you're ever going to make, are the ones that have shitty context or
Hmm.
emotions, right? So looking at this in context, this particular act and the data that was exposed, not a big deal. I agree with that. But in context, you have to question, is this the right person? If this kind of behavior is tolerated, is this the right person to lead CISA? Because
Sure.
it's a shitty choice. I mean, he made a shitty decision. And if I was another thing, I mean, I guess, like I said, I try to put myself in the same situation, but knowing that my credibility is now questioned because I made a shitty choice, the best way to overcome those kinds of things are through transparency. Explain it.
Hmm.
I made a mistake. It was an oversight. And this is what I'm going to do to correct it to make sure that this doesn't happen again. For instance, maybe I don't need ChatGPT anymore because, I made a mistake. So I'm going to rescind my request for that, whatever. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out of it because thus far it hasn't been transparent. And yeah, I don't, I've
I don't
had
even.
issues. I've had issues with CISA from the very beginning. So I'm kind of biased on all this
Yeah, I
stuff.
remember, some of your presentations and the titles.
Well, we should be. We should hold, this is our government. And I wish we would do this in other parts of the government. We need to hold our government accountable because when you make shitty choices, it's not you necessarily that suffers, it's people who suffer. You always have to feel like, especially in a security leadership position and as a VCISO, I make decisions. And when I make the wrong decisions, I can get another damn job, whatever. It's not a big deal. But for the people that suffer, that's why we work here. That's why we do what we do. So, yeah, we should hold CISA highly accountable. When they went through the layoffs that they went through last year or earlier this year, I I wasn't that upset about it because CISA, even up until like a couple of years ago, didn't even have a stated mission, a purpose. And we've spent over $10 billion on CISA so far. And I have to wonder what we've got in return for that. Are we more secure now than we were when CISA started? No, we're not. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, like you said, if there's no clear mission, or objective, you have no idea where you're going or if you're even on path to get there.
Yeah.
The other th the other thing I just wanted to add on this article, kind of looking at it through that, vCISO lens, is aside from the guy, aside from the decisions and stuff like that we're talking about, and aside from that there really hasn't been much of a response transparently explaining what happened, is just the acknowledgement that things are going to happen. It's not a perfect world. And when those happen, therein lies our opportunity for lessons learned and how we can grow and be better moving forward from that. And I
Right.
think that's aside from following headlines and stuff like that, I think that's kind of the best takeaway we can have as individuals, is almost mentally just asking ourselves, well, if this would have happened in our organization, what would we do? How would we respond? And what could we do better moving forward to grow from the experience?
Right. And
Like,
to add a little bit more context to this thing, you've got all the stuff that we already mentioned, but the article that we referenced in December, this same person, he wanted I think more access to things. And so he had requested that and he was given an quote unquote unsanctioned polygraph test. I
okay.
mean, he was going to have to go through the polygraph test anyway to receive what he was requesting. It's just that the process that was followed to give him the polygraph test wasn't followed because that was another excuse, right? Because he failed the polygraph test. You have to take this counterintelligence polygraph test last last year, and he failed it. And so people rushed to defend the failure as well. The polygraph test was unsanctioned. Okay, yes, it was unsanctioned. So that then give him a sanctioned one. Because in order for him to get that level of access that he was requesting back then, he was going to need a polygraph test anyway. So there's that. Fail the counterintelligence polygraph test. Polygraph tests, they can be bypassed. They're not 100% certain. That's why they're not, permitted in criminal cases in the United States and whatever. But
Mhm.
they're pretty fucking legit. I mean, you would have to look at the transcript and the data to see the polygraph test on, whatever. But generally, I would say, you could Google it, I suppose, like 80% probably certainty, 90% certainty. So when you fail a polygraph test, it should be a really, really big red flag. So, like, I'm going to conclude that you probably lied, and that's why he failed the polygraph test. It'd be really interesting to know what he lied about. Because again, as a leader, a highly visible leader of, America's cyber agency, you got to address these damn things.
Andy, were you going to say something earlier?
Yeah, I just circling back, it just seems like he misunderstood the basics of, everything with Chat GTP and it being so new and everything. And I like how they put it in the article. I'm just scrolling back up to it here.
Mhm.
Yeah, uploading it to a public tool creates a real exposure, loss of data control, expanded exposure surface, secondary misuse of risk, and policy boundary collapse. And then a little further
Right.
down, there was one more like that. That was a really
Well,
good
another,
point.
another thing that people don't realize about ChatGPT is if you feed ChatGPT or any data aggregation a whole bunch of unclassified information, the algorithm is meant to make sense of data and correlate data between different you know inputs, documents, photos, whatever. And so if I gave it five for internal use documents over here, another five over there, and 10 over there, and 20 over there, and 100 over there, you can correlate all the data and create highly sensitive information because
Yeah,
you
that's true.
pieced everything together. So this thing, as it stood alone, yeah, not a big deal. But this thing combined with this thing, combined with that thing, combined with that thing, now I've got a big picture and it's highly classified.
Yeah.
That'd be my biggest concern about leaking anything to ChatGPT from places like the government.
No, dude, you did exactly. I mean, and I think that kind of ties into the whole more questions than answers, and probably more questions than we'll ever get answers to. You just
Yeah.
know that. And to your point, Andy, I think it's like when we do research breaches or incidents, we find that it wasn't necessarily a complicated action that took place to trigger the breach. And this is something that you would think is just communicated to people at every level.
Well, and this distracts so much from what CISA is supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
That's another thing. I mean, from a leadership perspective, sure, you've lost credibility. You've probably lost credibility to some level for CISA itself. The court, CISA's mission is this. How much does this take away from that mission? And how much more money, and work will it take to overcome these hurdles? It's just shit all around. And one way you could take care of it, and this is the reason why sometimes you fire people, is firing. New path forward.
Hmm.
Because here you've got, in my opinion, as being a critical security person, he lacked, I think, the experience to begin with, being South Dakota's chief information officer and a few other South Dakota-ish things, but he doesn't have extensive information security experience to begin with. And then you couple that with, lying on, or not lying, but failing on the unsanctioned polygraph test. And now it's like, this isn't the right guy to lead this organization. Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder
Yeah.
too how much the pressure of kind of at the bottom paragraph there, they talk about the number of cuts and personnel dropping and the funding that was cut with proposed budget cuts of nearly 500 million for fiscal year 2026. They lost a third of their staff. I mean, what does that do? The pressure of all that just got to be amazing. Okay,
Mhm.
should be plenty.
Yeah. So it's an interesting news story for sure. And there's a lot more to read, I think, beyond just the article.
Yeah.
If you really,
Yeah.
because CISA has always struggled with credibility. If you really want to get CISA on some solid footing, you get a hell of a leader in there that has experience, that can do these things And then you put a lot of time and effort into a communication strategy that gets people bought in on what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
We'll see what
Yeah.
happens.
Well, and there was a bit of, Evan, you and I have chatted about it offline, just where when you have someone who's in charge of an organization like CISA, you can really see how they conduct themselves. And if they put the role above themselves and just the, I hate to use the word posture, the position themselves, that you should think that the role is larger than you. And that hasn't always happened with the people that are in there, which turns it into a bit of a personality contest sort of a thing. It's what we talk about. It's mission, ego, or money. And you see ego permeate its way in there. And when it does, and it happens more in just CISA, but using that as an example, bad things happen.
That's a great observation, man. Because I do think being the head of CISA is a huge ego trip for sure.
Hmm.
Because you get invited to all the the big conferences, keynoting, you're the shit, right? And I think a good leader, like, I don't want to be the shit. What the shit is the mission. That's the shit. So yeah, it would be a tough spot to be in. But you need it. Yeah, it's got to be a mission driven, or it can't be money either, right? Because the government
Right. Yeah.
mission. Go in there and clean this shit up. Let's go.
I've had the opportunity to become really good friends with Brian Gibbs and coming into this role and and how much he's supported the academy, the mission, and everything. And I remember we were having lunch when we kind of first met, and it was just important for me to tell him, you know, I may have a neat title, but I understand what my role is. And my role is to drive and lead the academy. And that's the metric I need to be measured against. It's not a Dave. Andy hears it all the time. It's not a Dave thing. And I don't want it that way. It's a we thing and how we can make things better. So
Yeah, and there's so many leadership things to learn, man. I mean, I'm always learning. Like one thing, and you have mentors along the way that share their wisdom because there's two, in my opinion, three ways to learn wisdom. You can either learn it through painful experiences, not just
hmm
any experience. It's got to be painful. You can learn wisdom that way. You can learn wisdom from other people that have gone through the painful experiences, or you can ask God for it. And those are the only ways I know to get wisdom. And that's what wisdom is so powerful as a leader. And some of the things you can just like the wind blows the strongest to the top of the mountain if you're doing it right. Meaning the higher you rise in an organization, the harder it gets, the more weight you feel. It's hard. That's supposed to be that way. Because I think a lot of people want to be leaders. They think, oh, I've arrived. I'm the leader. I'm all that. That's an ego-driven leadership. And that's bullshit. And that it's not going to serve well. It might serve you well for a time, but for the mission, for the organization, for everybody else's benefit, it's going to suck. So one is the wind blows the strongest at the top of the mountain. Another one is that it's lonely at the top of the mountain.
yeah.
It's supposed to be lonely at the top of the mountain. There's nobody else that can truly understand what it's like to be in your position. And you have to just embrace that and you have to accept that, right? And then good leaders are always looking for their replacements.
hmm
I'm always, that's why FR Secure has, Oscar. And then get the fuck out of the way. Like a shitty leader would be like continue to lead forever, right? At the detriment of the mission because they will always want to be relevant. They always want to be needed. Good leaders shouldn't be needed. Good leaders should be wanted. I mean, there's just so many things to learn about leadership. And I think at CISA, yeah, you need a good leader. You need a good leader who's going to come in there. Let's really define the focus for the mission. What are the top two things that we need to do in this organization to call ourselves successful this year, 2 years, 3 years from now?
hmm
How do we report back to the public who hired us what they got for their money? You spent $3.9 billion with us last year. This is what you got. And make it
Right.
tangible, make it measurable, make it personal. Because the people that we're serving, 99% of them have never even heard of CISA, have no idea who the fuck CISA is. That's a problem. The security community knows what CISA is, but we're not serving the security community. We're serving the public, the nation. I could keep going, man, but there's so many things that need to be realigned, rearranged, and fixed at that place.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, but no, that's cool. And that's why I thought this was, when you mentioned this article, I thought it was a good one, a great one to do a dive into and look at it these ways.
Well, I
If you
appreciate
guys
that,
are
man.
cool. Yeah, no, dude, thank you. And if you guys are cool, I'd like to shift gears a little bit and talk about a new course that we've just put together that's going to be coming to market at the end of it. March 30th will be launch date. And it really isn't I want to talk about what the mission behind the course is and what led for it to be devised and how we've kind of worked to support what that mission is more than anything. The course, they said it's a brand new one at Academy. We've had the CvCISO program, the foundations course is the one that's been live for 3.5-ish years now. And we're just going live with the level 3 courses. So as Andy and I talk to people about it, the real cool thing there is now we can talk about the whole program and the whole life cycle of the program rather than just a particular course and say, oh, chat with somebody, where are you at in your career and what are your aspirations, and look at how the course may align with that, and whether it's a particular course or running the gauntlet through the whole thing. And then we also have added the API security and governance program, which has been really cool, and actually was able to do coffee talk with the CEO of TeaseLab, who we partnered with for that one yesterday. And we'll get that recording up available for everybody. But this one is called CSSRA, and it stands for the Certified Security Studio Risk Assessor. And what it is for those that are not familiar, you can take SecurityStudio and there's almost two departments of the organization at large. One is the SecurityStudio Risk Assessment Platform that has the different modules for doing risk assessments, PCI. There's about 5 modules altogether, but the grandfather of all of it was another one of Evan's children or brainchild ideas. And Evan, if you can just take a minute and explain what that is, then I can kind of better correlate what the mission of the certification is in support of that.
Yeah, man. So it's all tied back to the big mission, the grandfather mission, which is to fix the broken industry,
Hmm.
which has always served us really, really well. And so that's find things that are broken in the industry, and then you just focus on fixing them. You try to find, and it's funny because right now I'm writing Unsecurity 2, and as I was writing this, I stopped and like, what is the root cause like of all this shit? Because I've spent so much time trying to figure out like what is our problem, and it comes down to accountability, but that's another piece. But anyway, when you look at our industry, there's a lot of people, we're speaking different languages, and then we argue about the languages that we're speaking, and it doesn't serve anybody well, right? It's like me arguing with you, like you speak German, I speak English. It's like us arguing on which language is better. It's a stupid argument. What we should be focusing on is how do I translate how I speak? Either I need to learn your language or you need to learn my language, or we need to figure out a translation between the two.
Hmm.
So that's what started, and that's actually what started a lot of the way we do information security risk assessments way back when. And then what we found was I do an information security risk assessment and you do an information security risk assessment. We try to quantify the outcome. And so what we would find when we do these things without controls, without doing it the same sort of way, is our findings there'll be anywhere between a 15 to 20% deviation in the score.
Hmm.
So that led to, all right, let's figure out mathematically how to do this. And that led to the platform, the SecurityStudio platform. And just going there, we found that where we were at 15 to 20% deviation, because different experiences, whatever, that it was single digit, 5 to 7%, which is acceptable in most cases, right? So if I do an information security risk assessment and you do an information security risk assessment of the same organization, our findings are going to be within 5 to 7%, which is pretty cool. The
Hmm.
same is true if I did an assessment with, I've got 30 some odd years of experience and somebody who's got 1 year of experience. The same thing will hold true. So then it's like, well, how there's a couple things then for people with the 1 year experience. One, do they have the confidence to do an information security risk assessment? Do they understand the questions in the information security risk assessment so that they can answer it correctly? Because a lot of things you'll see in an assessment will say words like all are used.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all means all, but some people can, well, I mean, most of it, like 80%. So I'm going to check yes on this, right? So how do you get through and navigate all those things so that the person that has less experience feels confident in conducting an information security risk assessment, number one. Number two, them going through that whole exercise and all that work, is the outcome something that I can use, right? So is it still within the 5% or have we even made it better? So I think the certified risk assessor course is to teach people. I think we take for granted, I've done so many information security risk assessments over the years that I just take for granted that is that. This is this. So I think taking somebody with less experience, giving them the confidence to do an information security risk assessment, to navigate the process and have results that are credible, that they can buy into, communicate, whatever. That's why I see the purpose behind it. One of the applications that's a personal application for me that I'd really love to see it take root is some of our underserved communities like school districts.
Mm-hmm.
The state of Iowa's got these AEAs, right, which manage all these school districts. Every single school district should have an information security risk assessment. Every school district needs information security leadership, right? Along with the mission of educating these children and all that other stuff. Yet most school districts don't have an information security risk assessment. If they do, it's a shit information security risk assessment. So how do we help people make good information security risk assessments so that they spend their dollars wisely? Same with like the state of Minnesota. When I was invited to give a talk to the Blue Ribbon Commission on IT, which makes recommendations to the governor, I posed a really simple question. What's the current state of security in the state of Minnesota today?
Yeah, let's
Because
just start.
if I was the governor or if I were the state's CIO, if I don't have an answer to that question, how the fuck can I be managing this? You're just chasing your tail everywhere. So in order for you to do that, well, then you'd have to get all the state's agencies, 92 agencies, doing assessments the same way so that we could aggregate scores and that you could answer that question, what's the current state of security? I would also be able to tell you what agencies need help in what ways so that you could take the agencies over here that are doing this part of security really, really well and apply it over to these ones that aren't doing it really, really well. And it doesn't cost me any money to do that. You know what I mean? So there's so much more to just learning how to do information security risk assessments the right way. It's learning to do it the right way that you can defend, that you can feel comfortable with, that the customer can do good shit with. Sorry, I preached a long time right there.
No, it's always good to hear that from you because it grounds, it helps ground and reinforce that we're aligned and going in the right direction together, which is huge.
Well, because some customers will think people that don't understand us and don't understand our credibility and our integrity will think, oh, you're just creating another course so you can make more money, so you can sell more courses. And that couldn't be further from the truth. We have to meet people where they're at, right? The full CvCISO 1 course, it's great for a certain group of people.
Mm-hmm.
But there's other groups of people that I would never recommend that course to because they're not ready for it or whatever. But the assessor's course, perfect for those people that are, I think, doing information security things within an organization because there's nobody else there to do it.
Yeah. And when we were so credit for the idea goes to John Harmon. He was the one that identified the gap and then was basically said, there's the gap. How can we address that gap? And there's a lot of content through the course, but the baseline driver behind it was to take, like you're saying, different people. And we've talked about it, that if we don't define what the standard or communicate the objective is, people are going to fill it with their own thoughts. So we wanted to create a standard on which risk assessments could and should be conducted. And It's based on objectivity, removing any sort of bias and giving people the foundational knowledge of how to follow that North Star. And so that gives a bit of a standardization of if we do this, and it's come up multiple times, that following that standard, even like you were saying, asking what is the state of security for the state of Minnesota? If you don't have that standard, you're going to have that deviation, even with people having good intentions.
Right. I mean,
So,
how are you measuring the effectiveness of your information security program? The fact of the matter is, and you can, nobody can debate this. I mean, you can debate it, but you'll be wrong. Information security is risk management, period.
mhm.
So, in order for me to manage risk, I need to understand risk first, then make decisions on those risks, and sort of implement those decisions and then repeat that process. That's the simplest way to do it. So, the input at the very beginning is your information security risk assessment. If your information security risk assessment is shit, your decisions will be shit. Your implementation will be shit, and it'll feed back into a cycle of shit. I mean, it's that simple. And it's not that Security Studio's information security risk assessment is the only solid risk assessment out there. There are many of them. And so
Oh, yeah,
that
absolutely.
right. So what we need to understand is what makes an information security risk assessment a good one versus not a good one. What are the inputs into that information security risk assessment? How are these quantifications calculated? Is it truly objective or is it my opinion? Because you can debate my opinion all day long. So there's so much value in this course so you get off on the right foot because everything else is driven from this.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was, again, part of the North Star was that we wanna give the assessor the tools on how to do an objective assessment in a replicatable and scalable way. So yeah, and so the sections of it, and actually before even touching on the sections, oh man, I'm going to lose my train of thought there. But what you were saying and how being able that somebody can go through these and understand the principles behind it. What is a risk assessment? Why do we need it? And all of that then again ties into what we teach in the other courses of is it better to not spend a dollar or spend a dollar unwisely? And this is the prequel to understanding the state of the environment. So then you can ultimately, when you're looking at the results or you're putting the results together, you can get a better understanding, not only on a technical way, but on an overall risk to the organization.
Yeah,
And that was an,
the
go ahead.
technical way is easy, man. I mean, it's
Yeah,
computers are binary, right? When you talk about objectivity, you can't get more objective than binary. It's a one or a zero. Computers only do what you tell them to do. They don't have a mind of their own and like people do. People are analog. They're all over the damn place. It's a wavelength. They're not binary. And
right.
the technical part of security is, I mean, you have to do it right again, but it's really pretty simple. It's when
Yeah.
when you filter in the human part of this, and I can't stress enough, information security risk assessments, good ones, are the foundation of your security program. You have to make these decisions based on. And what makes a good risk assessment is one that is objective. It's objective questions because you'll get this too, like an information security risk assessment that says, rate your information security policy effectiveness on a scale of 1 to 5. That's not objective. The more objective way to follow that same thing, because you'll find that you have to ask a lot more questions if you truly want to be objective. Because first you need to
Well,
ask, do you have an information security policy? Secondly, does that information security policy cover these things? Thirdly, is it written as a reference document, not like a damn manual? Fourth, is it communicated to everybody? Does everybody know where it's at? Fifth, has it been updated in the last 12 months to reflect the current operating environment? So you can see how that one question, rate the effectiveness of your information security program on a scale of 1 to 5, very subjective, but not a good basis for making information security risk decisions because it doesn't cover a whole bunch of risks.
Well, it also introduces, okay, what is the definition of one? What is the definition of two? What is the definition of three, of
Sadly,
four?
yeah.
What is and what is the variance between three and four? And we've always talked about how
Dave, what is a woman? Yeah.
well,
You need to define it, right? I mean, you have
yeah,
to define it if we're all going to use the same definition. And that's another thing about information security. As much as you can, take the emotion out of it, understanding that people have emotions and you have to account for that. But when you're talking about an information security risk assessment, it's logic. This is what it is. You may not like it. That gets to our communication piece, right? Which is a whole nother thing. You may not like that you have all these risks, but the fact of the matter is the risks exist. And that's why I love information security, because I don't have to deal with the feelings as much until I get to the communication piece.
yeah, and dang it, I had the thought and I lost it again.
That's because I talk all over you all the time, Dave.
Well, it's a combination of that and the analog part of my brain. But if you give me 30 seconds, it'll come back, and it just
We'll have
did.
to get Dave a brain.
Coffee.
Yeah.
Caffeine.
You're seeing Dave buffering.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say was, because you touched on it, and it was important to bake this into the course, is there's a good chunk of the course that says, this is the body of knowledge you need to know. These are, like you said, these are the definitions of objectivity and all of those things. So that element, which is probably 80% of the course, is vendor agnostic. That is just knowledge of what is an assessment, an objective assessment, and how to go about doing it, regardless of what platform you use. It was just the remainder is, we got to give people, at some point, you got to pick a tool, and you got to,
Oh, yeah. There's one about knowing this stuff, right? And doing it
yeah.
100%.
Yeah. So 80% of it is, again, just vendor agnostic, but then we want to give the person the opportunity to conduct an assessment so they can apply what they've learned. And in that part, yeah, obviously we're going to use the SecurityStudio platform. But for anybody who's a risk assessor, I think there's just as I put it together, you and I have been around this sun a few times. So there was a good amount of thought, knowledge, experience, lessons learned that was able to try and put all of this in together. Very similar, like when you're writing a book.
Well, and just like I said, man, there's the three ways of wisdom, right? You can go and try to learn this on your own, take your lumps, and yeah, you will eventually get it, assuming you went into this for the right purpose. If you went into this game to try to see how much money you can make, well, then you'd be happy with your half-ass shit everywhere, right? And then we got to come clean it up. The people that are in this. But if you're in this industry for the right reasons, whether you're just getting started or you've been in this industry for a long time, you will attain a certain amount of wisdom just through your own mistakes, through your own, oh, that really sucked. That really hurt. That's wisdom, because you don't want to keep doing that unless you're stupid. So that's one way. The other way to learn wisdom, and I think one of the things that makes us, you, me, and others so passionate about teaching, is I don't want you to go through the pain. If you have to go through the same pain that I went through to get to where I have the wisdom I have, it's bad for you, number one. Number two, us who are committed to fixing the broken industry, we didn't push the ball forward at all. We're just repeating the same bullshit that we went through 20 years ago. So I would much rather you listen, accept the wisdom that we're trying to share with you so that you can take it to the next level. There's so much more work to do beyond just doing risk assessments, making risk decisions, doing vCISO work on it, So I'm excited about this class because it's an opportunity for us to share the wisdom, save a bunch of information security professionals from the pains that we went through so that then when they hit the streets, they can do it better than we did it.
And one of the things that's really cool having the opportunity to be in this role is meeting and getting to know the people that are younger and have the same passion. And the same hunger to learn and do the right thing and be able to share our experiences with them and hope that that they don't learn the lessons in the same way we may have
That's what
in
I try to
those.
tell people about. Like, there's nothing special about me. I was just too stupid to quit, and I didn't die. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You just stick with it, and you just keep getting, more and more wisdom. But the fact of the matter is, and that's this is one of the things I hate about us in this industry is our posturing that we do a lot. I'm actually going to write a blog post on that. It's going to be posturing is for pansies, because we need to be able to relate to this next crop, these people that don't have as much experience as we do, that there's nothing special, man. It's basics, it's fundamental stuff, and make it a welcoming environment. Because I think that's another thing that we strive to do in the academy and with the assessor's course and the CvCISO 1 course is there's no posturing here. I'm not going to make you feel stupid because I've been through this before or anything else. I'm going to try to relate to where you're at in your own walk in this industry and try to build you up, try to give you the tools again to be
Mhm.
better than me. I'm not the end all be all of information security, right? There's a whole bunch more better shit. And so we need to create more people that are better than us.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that we just recently implemented in every course is the Chatham House rule, where what we said is said in the class stays in the class. The names and the organizations and the specifics stay in there. You can go out and say, hey, I spoke with somebody that had a ransomware attack, but you don't say who it is or what happened. You just get to share that. When we're teaching, that alone can be new to some people. But once they understand it, it creates just this pocket of trust and being in a safe space to share your experiences, ask your questions, knowing you're not going to be judged and you're going to be supported. And that has been such a unique differentiator in the quality of the classes and what people are pulling from them. It's just been fantastic. You know, it was an idea. We said, let's give it a shot. And halfway through the first class, we knew we were on to something.
And
And
I've been relaying that to everybody I talk to. Yeah. And I think it brings a
please,
higher quality into the class. Absolutely.
and I think it's still new enough that we've been communicating it to people that are interested in the classes, but really to take it to the next level, what I love to see us start doing is encouraging the graduates or students to implement it in what they do outside of class.
Yeah.
It's a solid model, and I think the classes just became a good case study of how those can work. But as a VC, so you're going to have some challenging conversations, and if you can communicate that they are in that safe space, you're the quality of dialogue that will lead to what may be more challenging decisions can be of just next level quality. So,
Amen, brother. That's a good
yeah.
place to end this podcast. Do you
Amen
concur?
to
This is
you as
this is the
well.
awkward silence right there.
Amen to
Yeah.
all of it. That was some great
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, and that wasn't even me buffering. That was just no, it was. Yeah. So
I appreciate you guys, man. I appreciate carrying this torch forward. We have a lot of work to do there. You don't see it. I don't think a lot of people see it, but every breach has people who suffer from them. You know what I mean? Whether it's sometimes it's
Mhm.
across a wide range of people, and so you don't feel the pain of it. Sometimes it's more direct, and you feel the pain directly. But there's a lot of people for us to serve, and things aren't getting better. And I think our continual march forward through these things hopefully eventually we'll get over the hump and we'll actually start making things better. And not
Yeah,
just for us, but at CISA too. Boom. I just made fun of them again.
beautiful. Yeah. One final poke in the belly there.
That's right. All right. Love you guys, man. Have a great weekend.
You
You
as
too,
well,
man.
brother. Cool. Thanks, man. See y'all.